face to the.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let's just kick that. This conversation is going to be between myself, yourself, and two students.
Okay.
The goal is for us to have a conversation around AI within academia, what some of the issues are, from an educator's point of view, and also what students have to say, answer some questions that we've gotten with respect to this, and then, just navigate and move from there.
Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, so good morning and good day, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sonia Sayade, and with me is Aisha Suleiman. Aisha Suleiman is an assistant lecturer at the Northeastern University in Gombe. Aisha is a quantity surveyor and a graduate from Ahmadu Bello University. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
She Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. I will be tapping from your expertise today and answering some of the questions and some of the issues that some students have raised and some other educators have also mentioned as one of their blockers with respect to, opening their arms to AI. Happy International Day of Education. We don't have enough days that celebrate educators, in the world, from the sacrifices, to the work that you guys put in. So for today, we decided to, have a conversation with an amazing and astute educator as yourself, Aisha. Thank you so much for joining us. Please, I have a flu, so please forgive my voice. Okay, so for today, being International Day of Education, the theme is AI in education. How can we preserve human agency? So my first question to you, Aisha, would be, what has been your what's your experience with AI as an educator and also coming from students?
Yes, and thank you very much for having me here. I believe the theme for this year is very timely. It came at the right time because whether we like it or not, AI is here to stay. and the development in the AI world is faster than what was anticipated. And we know at the backbone of it, one of the biggest fears is the preservation of human agency, as has been rightly pointed. So for my experiences with AI, it is both good and bad. Now, for most people see AI as something to avoid, but I believe it's a necessary evil. It is something that has come to stay. And with most technology, the fear is always that it is going to replace humans, or it is going to replace human beings in certain aspects of life. Now, I do not believe that there are drawbacks to AI, but I do not believe that AI could replace human beings. Now, for education, my experience has been good in the aspect of AI as a tool in education, as an assist, like a tool. We use AI to help with research, to aid learning and teaching, both learning processes and teaching processes. Now, but on the other hand, we have issues with over-reliance on AI from students. Now, it's difficult with tools like AI to get students to stimulate students' critical thinking. The whole point of learning is for you to enable students to think for themselves, be able to solve problems. Now with AI, you have over-reliance on the side of students using these technologies for basically everything. So you have students not even taking the time to read, to fact check. And unfortunately, where we are right now with AI, there are still biases. The information is not 100% reliable. So with students over-relying on AI and not understanding that those biases are there, especially in this part of the world. You know how racial biases play a strong role when it comes to artificial intelligence, especially when it comes to, generative AI models. You have those biases inherent in AI. we are not at the level where AI is devoid of those biases. So when students over-rely on those tools, you tend to have issues, you tend to have information that is not always accurate. You have citations from ChatGPT that do not exist. So for me, the experience is the issues with over-reliance. But on the other part, AI is a very valuable tool, especially in the fast-paced world. It is something we should embrace, but without forgetting the human agency, how important it is for critical thinking. Yes.
Thank you so much for that, Aisha. That's a very fantastic contribution. So we asked a couple of students, some questions.
Yes.
And a good number of them were talking about, some of their lecturers, banning the use of some of these AI tools,
Yes.
ChatGPT generated answers and resources.
Yeah.
And I think you already nailed, you hit the nail on the head with respect to over-reliance and not being able to fact check, or even still going through the due process. For those of us who are practitioners rather within the education technology space, we always recommend that with the use of AI is designed to assist, not exactly replace. So there are some of these tools that students have mentioned that they use, from Perplexity to Gemini to Bard, and most recently now Distinction AI, which is designed, with the university curriculum for them to, practice questions and be able to answer exam questions and just do better in the classroom. So my next question would be, what are some of your recommendations? So for students, a lot of students are saying that they are getting blockers, from their lecturers. And I think this is because it's just like with the age of the internet, right? The way the internet is designed, garbage in, garbage out, it gives you, what you ask of it. So my question would be, what are some of the things that you could recommend, for students, for them to be able to better use AI and not be too over-reliant on it, like you've mentioned?
Yes. So for me, I believe there's no point in banning or stopping the use of AI, because even to use AI is a skill in itself. To use AI well is a skill that we should be teaching students, because we do not want our students to be left behind. Whether we like it or not, in the not so distant future, AI is going to be part of parcel of all our work processes and learning processes. So I believe what we should encourage is the ethical use of AI. So we should teach students to use AI alongside other tools that will stimulate their thinking. As I said, critical thinking is very important. Now we should also teach students to be able to declare any AI tool they use. Instead of telling them not to use it, we should encourage them to declare the use of AI in any of their assignments or work or projects. Now, when you do that, we should also add AI processes into teaching AI exercises or activities in class, so that we are able to teach the students how to ethically use it, to use it within the boundaries, within certain boundaries. Because unfortunately now we have people sharing sensitive documents with AI without thinking of the repercussions or maybe the illegalities of doing that. So instead of outrightly saying do not use AI, we should teach students how to ethically use AI, declare whatever AI tools they use, and maybe encourage the use of certain AI tools and discourage the use of other AI tools. Because whether we like it or not, there are rogue AI tools that shouldn't be encouraged in the classroom. But there are AI tools that would really help students. We have, like you said, Perplexity. It's a good research tool. And maybe we also need to change the way we teach and our curriculum to be able to engage students on a deeper level. Instead of, the take-home assignments, maybe practical exercises are better. So AI, we should stop seeing AI as the enemy. There was a time when computers came up newly, people were against them because they just assumed computers are going to take over their jobs. And
Very true.
decades later, yes, computers have not taken over human beings yet, but they are now valuable tools. I believe AI is the same. It is just technology. We have our fears, definitely, but we cannot stop the use of AI. We just need to teach the ethical use of AI. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. That's all very very valuable insights and input. Thank you so much for that. That says that we should look at helping students, encouraging them, to declare, the use of AI either in their assignments or in ways that they've used it. So that way, it's once you know they are going to declare that you've used AI, in your work, you're a little bit more deliberate in how you use it and how you personalize it, in your assignments. Thank you so much for that, Aisha. You mentioned something really critical, which is respect to the fact that no matter how much friction, our educators in this part of the world pose towards the adoption of AI, we're most likely going to be left behind because we know that the way the world is designed, people in either Europe or the Americas are already embracing this with both hands. So it means that if we're looking at designing and creating graduates for the future, graduates of the future, people that are able to work across the globe, we need to be able to teach them and encourage them to be able to use these platforms and use them right. Yes. Thank you so much for that, Aisha. So my next question would be from one of the issues, that one of the lecturers that I spoke with during one of the conferences that we attended sometime last year. He mentioned that what he has seen with most, what's the word now? With most, the way students tend to use the way students tend to use AI is that they what's the word now? Like you mentioned, over exposure. They don't use it. I don't want to use the word ethically, but they replace their own agency, so to speak, with what ChatGPT gives them. And like you mentioned earlier, you said that ChatGPT is at a place where not even all the answers are accurate. They are not able to fact check. They're not able to, do due diligence. So as a student, if I'm watching this webinar, what are some of the things that or steps that you would recommend as a lecturer, that is going to end up receiving some of these assignments or some of these tasks or some of the things that students can do to better use AI and to be able to also excel in the classroom?
Yeah, and thank you for that. That is very important. Before I believe the reason why most educators seem to have an issue with the way, and the reason why we have students using AI the way they use the AI in the first place is the way our syllabus is designed. Now, unfortunately, the way we teach now would encourage students to actually use AI the way they use it. So until we even revise our curriculum to cater to put into considerations that yes, there is AI and students are going to use AI, so you need to even change the way you assess students, we are going to be having issues. But as an educator, one of the most important advice I have for students is, first of all, try to do those assignments yourself. And only use the AI to do parts of your assignment. Like you can use AI presentation tools now to make your presentation look better, grammar check, but do not leave all of your assignments to AI completely, like just typing the question and copying whatever AI gives you. Now, sometimes I encourage students to enjoy the process of doing that assignment. You are allowed to use AI to do part of it, for presentation purposes, for spell check purposes, but enjoy the process. Now, even in class exercises, something I try to do is to have students to write something themselves and maybe use AI to do the same task and compare it side by side and see which one has more essence. because up till now, as good as AI is, you cannot replace that particular human factor. So I encourage students to use AI for particular parts of their assignment and not the whole assignment, because I always tell them, when you use AI, I would know. And you use AI for your content, I would know. And another thing I try to do is to restrict the references, to give students references beforehand so that they would have to go and read
Those
those
references.
yes, those reference materials themselves. Now it's easy to just get ChatGPT to do your work, but when you try to do the exercise yourself first and you use AI, when you compare side by side, you can always see the difference, that there is always something missing, you know. AI is still very mechanical now. And if we discourage these students giving us mechanical answers, it will discourage them from using AI. But when we keep on fostering the culture of garbage in, garbage out, and whatnot, students would use AI because it's a shortcut.
For
But when
them, that's
you
very
give
true.
marks, yes, but when you give marks for students, putting in the effort, you encourage them. So I encourage students because one of the major drawbacks of AI is that, just like social media now, I digress. Social media has made us to have shorter attention spans. Now our attention span has become very short because of the kind of content we consume on social media. Now you can imagine when we over rely on AI, would be outsourcing our thinking completely. So I encourage students to simulate. You need to simulate your brain. You need to simulate your mind. So use AI, but use it for parts of your assignment. Limit it to editing, presentation at most. But I encourage you to use resource materials, other resources, to use AI. And you should also learn how to use AI itself, because it is not just typing your assignment. The quality you get from AI is as much as you give it. So until you learn to be very descriptive, you are not getting quality work from AI itself. That's why it's very easy to recognize when student makes submissions using AI. Yes. So for you to even get quality from AI, you need to give it quality input.
Very true.
The output is just as good as your input. So you need to put in the work for you to even give it a reasonable input. That's why you see two submissions from ChatGPT looking completely different. It's the prompt. So embrace, but tread carefully.
Thank you so much for that, Aisha. It's really lovely, to be speaking to an educator that is very pro AI. I've not spoken to that many educators. A lot of them are, I think the word is discouraged. They've seen instances where students just take the question they are given in classes and they just put it into AI and they just copy it and send it and submit that. So as an educator yourself, you already mentioned some of these things, but I'll just like for you to elaborate on them. Like, what are some of the things that you would also encourage other educators to do to be able to, help foster this in the classroom? Students are going to be students. I remember when I was in school as well, I was always finding the easiest ways, to do things. I just want to do it and be done with it. So what are some of the things that we can do to help? Because students are going to use AI. Students are going to find, some of the easiest ways. What are some of the middle ground, between an educator and also students? So for students, it's already encouraged that, they do the research themselves, they try and compare. And then you also mentioned something very critical, which is prompt. So personally, right, I'm a marketing professional. I work within the marketing space, and I have some of my colleagues here as well. Hi, Lacey. Hi, Zubeda. And we are very big users, of AI. But one of the things I will always say is AI is supposed to support, support the work that you do, and not exactly replace the work that you do. So like you mentioned, for the three of us, for example, if you had to give us something to do, and we try to do it with ChatGPT, right? Submissions we are going to end up submitting are most likely going to be different because, you know, we know that as a writer, for example, I don't want to lose my voice, or
Yes.
as a research person, I have an idea of, you know, what the lingua should be. And because I've already read the book, or already I'm a professional in this space and I know what I'm supposed to expect, if ChatGPT gives me something that is not accurate, or even a perplexity, or even a distinction AI, you know, I can compare and say, this is
Yeah.
not what it should be. I can compare it to something else. So what are some of the
Yeah.
things that you would recommend, you know, for educators to be able to foster the use, but also foster the right use in terms of, like, you know, tips and ways that they can go about it?
Yes. So one of the most important thing I would encourage is that to use AI and do class activities, you know, do in-class activities with the students using AI, so that they can be able to see in real time, you know, what AI can do and the limitations of AI. So for example, you can, you know, curate a class activity where you'd have questions, you have different prompts, you know, from the lecture, I can decide to, you know, this is how I would answer the question. You get the students to type in, let's say, different prompts into this AI, see what the output,
Comes
and you
out.
can compare the differences so that the students get to see. Like you said, as a professional, it's easier for it to distinguish when the information you are getting from AI is reliable or not. But students would not be able to do that to a certain level. So when you do in-class exercises and they are able to see in real time the extent to which AI can be helpful or not helpful, I believe when they go back themselves, they will be able to, you
Use
know,
it
within
better.
themselves, yes, use it better. So I always encourage that. And I would also encourage educators to take out the time to learn about these tools. You know, the reason why a lot of educators are against it is because they've not even taken the time
To learn.
to sit down and learn what some of these tools are. So I would encourage educators to go back to sit down to learn what these tools can do and how it can possibly help them and their students. Take out what is useful, teach it in class, and distinguish how those tools can be a problem, and teach those students. As educators, the most important thing I believe in this century is not just learning, it's not just teaching, because information is everywhere. Mentorship. You have to mentor the students. So until you can be able to tell them how to distinguish what is right, what is not right, what is useful and what is not useful, it will be difficult to just tell them AI bad, you know, AI is evil. Why? When they can go back and see how, you know, 3 days of work, you can do it in 15, 20 minutes. Of course,
Minutes.
and tell me it's bad, I would say, no, this teacher or this lecturer is just trying to make me go through hardship. So we, as educators, you need to take your time to learn about these tools, learn how it can be useful in teaching and learning for the students, and teach it in class. We need to incorporate it into our syllabus, because whether it is here to stay, it is not going anywhere.
That is very valuable, very, very valuable. I really like that the submission. You mentioned two things actually that I really loved. You know, if I had educators like yourself when I was in school, maybe I would have been a better student. But
Yeah.
you mentioned something very critical, and you said that, you know, let educators, you know, beyond just teaching, also taking the role of mentors. You know that this thing is here to stay. Then helping, you know, students have better use of this platform, even within the classroom activity. So it's not like you're saying don't use ChatGPT. Let's even use it in class. Let's say, okay, we're teaching. I didn't do quantity surveying. Let's say we're doing introduction to quantity surveying, for
Yeah.
example, and then we use ChatGPT in the classroom to say, okay, see, I just put what is quantity surveying. These are all the answers that it's given me. How do you better use it? These are the prompts to use. This is how to go about it. This is the right way to use it. This is not the right way to use it. So that way, even beyond what is being taught in the classroom, you know, well, we tend to call these things life skills. You are able
Yes.
to, from the classroom, you're not you are already being told, how to use it. That way your students are even better off than the regular garbage in, garbage out approach that other students would be using. That I'm very positive that once we share this on a more public space, hopefully educators will be able to learn a thing or two, in this regard. That is embracing AI, using it in the classroom, even beyond assignments. Let's not act like AI is not here to stay. It's one of the best ways to preserve human agency, as is the theme for International Day of Education, which is today, is being able to encourage students, for them to even know how best, to use these tools, but don't lose your voice. Let educators be at the front burner of this, encouraging students to use it even within the classroom, having better insights on even how to prompt these platforms to get the best results, what tools to use that can even help you, to do these things. And also the educators themselves taking the pain, the extra, what's the word now? As you put it, the extra mile of learning these platforms themselves. That is, even in your research, like you mentioned earlier, the research work, I know a lot of lecturers tend to do a lot of writing, a lot of papers, tend to do a lot of research, and these tools are here to make our lives easier, and they're not exactly here to replace us, so to speak. So the people that are able to get ahead of the curve are most likely going to get the best out of the platforms. Thank you so much for that, Aisha. So in your understanding and your use of AI so far, what do you reckon is the future would look like, within the academia, even among students and lecturers, in the line of, artificial intelligence and all these multiple language models?
Yes. So with the way AI is going now, unfortunately, a lot of our processes are going to be rendered obsolete. Now, when you look at the way AI is going and the way the internet generally has come and the way technology has improved, there are a lot of processes that we wouldn't need to do. Like before the Industrial Revolution, we were doing things with our hands, and we have machines now doing those things for us. Now, I believe a lot of the processes we now currently do ourselves will be relegated to AI, because it's going to be cheaper, it's going to save time. So in the long run, we are going to realize that what's the point of, sitting down to edit? What's the point of sitting down to write my social media post myself? And even some processes within core professionalism. Now, even within quantity surveying, I can sit down, and when I sit down to think, I know a lot of the processes in the not so distant future is going to be done by machines rather than humans. So I believe in the nearest future, the most important currency are going to be soft skills. I know we've been preaching soft skills. Yeah, what would take center stage is teaching students how to manage people, how to interact with people, communication, because those are the things that AI cannot do. For now, AI is not emotional. So emotional intelligence, rather than, how to do 1 + 1 in 2 seconds or add numbers. So those things are not going to be that important for humans to do in the future. So I believe soft skills are going to be given the center stage. We need to learn. Yes. So that is going to form the core of learning and teaching. Because as it is now, because of the way the internet is, social media is, humans are losing that touch. People are working remotely. People are losing their social skills. People are finding it difficult to talk to people one-on-one or make friends. So in the future, we need to come back to the basics and teach those soft skills, critical thinking, as I said in the first place. People that would be able to think and build things using AI are going to.
Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I think we've.
Sorry, I went off for a few seconds.
Yes, I was about to acknowledge that. Thank you so much for joining back so swiftly.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I was saying, I don't know where I got caught up, but
You
like,
were talking about critical thinking. You already mentioned the fact
yes,
that soft skills are going to be the
yes,
germ of the
an
future, then
edge.
critical thinking.
Yes, yes, because in the future, whether machines are doing our things or not, how to work with people, how to stay with people is going to be very, very important. So we need to, those skills then are skills that we do not need to teach. Those skills then are skills that we did not need to teach. But with the way the internet is and technology, we need to go back to teach those skills. Uh, then critical thinking, like I said, for people that are able to sit down, think, and actually use AI to build stuff that others are not thinking about, are going to be at the forefront of
As
innovation.
well.
Yes, like recently I saw a company, I think NVIDIA or something, that did short hackathons, encouraging people to build stuff using AI, not using their heads. But still, when people even using AI to build stuff takes a certain level of thinking to do what others are not using AI to do. So I believe education is going to change. Uh, some of the things we teach now are going to be obsolete. Some of the things are already obsolete in this
Absolutely.
part of the world. We are teaching skills that are not even needed. So you can imagine in the future with AI, a lot of these things we are teaching are not going to be needed. So we need to go back, sit down, and uh, recalibrate and rethink what we need to actually teach students, skills that are going to be valuable in
For
the
them.
future.
Thank you so much. That is really that's a very key point. I've not even thought about the fact that very soon we'll need to start teaching each other how to interact with each other. Almost every other person is behind the screen these days, from their homes. The company you mentioned, NVIDIA, has, according to reports, almost 70% of their staff members are now millionaires, owing to the increment in value of their stock prices. There are a lot of people these days. Students don't want to do regular 9 to 5 anymore. People are into
Yes,
either blockchain or cryptocurrency, or they are doing influencing, from their houses, or people are just
yes,
more and more trying to, it's now a gig economy, like it is called, where people are making
yes,
money more from just sitting in front of their computers. And if this trend, upward trajectory, continues to go on, it means that we'll be seeing less and less of each other. I was watching a YouTube video a couple of days ago, and this woman was showing trend of how people meet their spouses. Back in the day, it used to be friends introducing people, or your neighbor or your family or from school. These days, a very big percentage of that is being owed to dating apps and social media, like online space. People meet their spouses, on Instagram or Facebook. There's less and less human interaction. And a time would come, like you mentioned, Aisha, where we would need to now start to teach ourselves again, social skills and some of these things. AI just does not have the capability, to emote, like you call it. And those are some of the things that we most likely need to bring back into the classroom. You also mentioned a very key point around critical thinking. I think there's a lot of times when these words are being thrown around a lot, when people just hear critical thinking, critical thinking, critical thinking. The layman will just think, okay, this is thinking critically. What does it really mean? There's a book that says ask three whys, and I think three whys and three ifs, that says for every question you ask why 3 times, and then
yes,
by the third time you get the answer. Just to be able to encourage people, to think. If we're going to inculcate that into our curriculum, so to speak, what can the current framework within which our students are currently being taught, where we can encourage the act of critical thinking. When I was in school, there was this very big notion that once you know, write your assignments and your papers, the lecturers are looking for a specific, you know, way in which the
Yes.
answers should come. It doesn't
To read,
necessarily
yes.
encourage people trying to, you know, explore even outside of what they've been taught. So what are some of the things that we can do differently, you know, to be able to encourage human agency, like the theme says, and also critical thinking in like maybe a step-by-step recommendation or steps, you know, in which that lecturers can do and also students can imbibe to increase their level of critical thinking.
Yeah, like you say, we love to throw around the word critical thinking without really sitting down to understand what it means. Now, teaching students and, for example, giving them notes, you know, getting questions from those same notes and expecting them to write specific answers does not encourage thinking. You are just expecting the students to read it, cram it, understand at the surface, and write it out. I believe we need to change the way we do assessments, like I said earlier. Now, you see, there are some schools, you know, private schools in other parts of the world that are already encouraging thinking. Schools in China, schools in Finland, where they don't do traditional examinations like we do. You encourage students to build stuff. You just give them the necessary tools, you know, and encourage them to do things from those tools. So for example, you teach students, instead of, you know, normally in English, you give a student a topic to write an essay on. No, you teach them basic grammar. You allow them to, from their wildest imagination, write, no boundaries, no restrictions. Write what they think of, write what they feel they could, using those basic tools. So I believe we need to stop the way we do assessments. You see, why we expect certain questions, certain type of, instead of allowing students, if we encourage students, even from secondary school, to start building stuff, to start doing stuff within the bounds of their talents, we need to encourage creativity, you know, instead of yes, physics, you know, basic science is good. You teach it, but we expect, you know, we teach you 1 + 1, we ask you 2 + 2, instead of asking you to do an application of how do you apply those knowledge. So applied knowledge is where we need to focus on instead of theoretical knowledge. The theories are everywhere. You can simply go on Google and you get any answer for any theoretical knowledge. So we need to encourage applied thinking, applied knowledge. You know,
Okay, it looks like Aisha is currently experiencing
assessments
network
need to be
issues.
applied.
Okay.
I've students doing activities outside. Now it's what they allow them to write their own music notes, and you'd see very young students, you know, geniuses, writing amazing things that if you had restricted what they needed to do, they wouldn't have been able to do that. So I believe we need to, you know, learn from pioneers that are already teaching applied thinking. Now, most of the outliers we have in the world, where you look at them, as going back to what critical thinking is, when you look at most of the outliers we celebrate now, the likes of Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk,
Elon Musk.
they think beyond what is the surface. Yes. They look at things differently from the way others view things. You know, they look at things beyond the surface. They look at not just, you know, issues, they look at how to solve problems. So problem solving skills help with critical
Very
thinking, where you
critical.
look at things and not just view what, let's say this is what is the application, you know, you view things and you think of, okay, how can this things be better? Are there alternatives? So we need to encourage those forms of learning, and we cannot continue being strict with learning. We need to also encourage creative thinking, you know. We don't need to put students within certain boundaries. You know how we have it in Nigeria, you have science class, arts
Art
class, they will
class.
tell you
And
Yes. Now,
commercial.
yes, commercial. It restricts, and there are students that are good with maths and physics, but are also good with literature. Allow students to explore, you know, instead of bounding them to those, allow them to explore. Even within medicine, there's artistry in medicine. You see plastic surgeons, they will tell you it's more of an art. So if you had allowed them to even explore arts, they might be better
Better
doctors.
at their jobs.
Yes, yes. So I believe instead of restricting and putting students in boxes, we allow students, especially at the earlier stages of learning, to explore different interests. That will encourage, stimulate their brains to think of, okay, I'm thinking about arts and I'm thinking about mathematics. Maybe we'd have geniuses that are able to match those things together. So you have, athletes that will tell you, yes, they have a biological advantage. That's why they are good in running, but they are also very calculative. But when you put people in a box, they just think in one direction. So if you allow students at the earlier stages of learning to explore a variety of knowledge, I believe it will help stimulate their brains to think beyond what is expected or what is
them.
existing. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I think that is a very, very amazing submission, just as like every other thing that you've said so far, Aisha. Thank you so much. One of the things I want to play devil's advocate here, and I
Yes,
know that one of the biggest issues that most lecturers or educators tend to have, especially within tertiary institution, is being able to, come up with a grading system. With the rigid system, it's easy to grade, it's easy to mark. It's easy to allot points and marks and those things. But in a system where students are allowed to, explore and express themselves and use their own words and express their own understanding of things, the grading system might be a little bit difficult. How can we come up with something that gives everybody sort of like a level playing field I'll give an example. When I was in school, I had a classmate, very fantastic babe, girl, but back then, we're not as close anymore. But she loved the fact, because I studied agricultural economics. She loved agriculture. She went ahead to do a master. I think she's currently pursuing a PhD. And one of the things that she realized was one of the things that were being taught in class were not exactly the most recent
yes,
or what's the word, the most updated version. So she used to spend a lot of time on YouTube. So it means what we were being taught in class was not exactly the same as what she was studying, on YouTube.
yes,
If we were to look at it from the lens of what is supposed to be, she's supposed to, lead the entire class, just lead all of us.
yes,
But she was not
yes,
exactly doing the best in the classroom because our marking scheme was, a particular way. And I understand why it's
yes,
done that way. But what are some things that we can do, either from the NUC or the Ministry of Education, to be able to encourage the genius, in students
yes,
for someone like that, or even other people that are looking to, you read something and you're trying to express it in the
yes,
way that you understand, in a way that
yes.
it's now easier, to be able to grade everyone. What are your thoughts on that?
So what I believe is that, yes, we need to do away with the present grading system. But on the other hand, we need like a minimum benchmark. Now, whether
Hmm.
you like it or not, benchmarks are very important. So what I believe is, instead of grading 100% of what we teach, you know, you could reduce the grading to the basics. Yes, we know there are basic things that students need to learn. A student needs to learn to write, a student needs to learn to read. We should reduce the grading to maybe, let's say, 60-40%, and allow the 60% to open grading systems. Allow students within a structured system, but at the same time, we allow students to explore. Now, when we grade the basics, for example, in quantity surveying, there are basics that we expect a quantity surveyor to know. So you can allow that to the usual grading system that we have. But you also need to, open the practical aspects to be non-gradable to a certain extent. You encourage students to learn, to explore, to do projects. They do the projects, they pass, and that is all. No need for, those ABCs that we do are very detrimental. You have people that, did not, like you said, she would probably not get a first class in university, but she has updated knowledge on. So when we reduce it to a, minimum threshold, you just grade the basics. She would pass the basics because she knows them. But you did not box her to say, oh, you have a first class, you have a second class. No, we should maybe highlight the strength of each student on their certificate. So yes, this person passed and they do excellently well with writing. This person passed and they did excellently well in speaking. We should highlight on their certificates instead of highlighting, oh, this person graduated with a first class or second class upper. We should highlight the strengths that they graduated with. This person is good with team building exercises, for example. This person has more strength on so aspects of the profession. You see, that would even help recruiters to easily spot what they are looking for. Because the grading system now, when you are recruiting people, you recruit a first-class student to certain roles, and you realize the skill set you actually require, they do not possess. That person is not good with people. Yes, they have a first class, but you put them in specific roles that they would not even be able to function properly. So if on certificates, we highlight the strengths that those students graduated with, I think it will do more. It will also help students to focus on particular aspects. And specialization, like they said, is the future. So if from schools we begin to highlight what that student is good at, I believe it will be better than just, putting everybody into a box.
Thank
We
you
should
so
have
much.
minimum requirements. Thank you. But at the same time, we should leave it open for.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Thank you. I wish we could, go back in time and I can have you as one of my, if not even a lecturer, because I didn't quantity survey, maybe a course advisor,
Yes.
This has been very fantastic. It's been a very lovely conversation with you so far. We've spoken about the fact that we currently have an over-reliance on AI, where students are relying heavily and are not even using it right. You've mentioned that one of the ways to, attack this or tackle this rather is by encouraging the use of AI even in the classroom. So as lectures are going on, educators are able to help students use AI even within the classroom. That way, they get to know how to use it better and how to use it right, ethically, like you mentioned. You also mentioned prompting, with the use in the classroom, students are able to know what prompts to use, how to use it, and how not to lose their own voice, which is what I believe the theme reflects with respect to human agency. I already mentioned the in-class activity and exercises. You've mentioned mentorship as well. That is, educators filling in the gap, especially for those that are still within the context of the classroom, where educators take it upon themselves to learn even what AI is about, what tools are most valuable or most in use, for their niche or for their spaces. You mentioned tools that can help with presentation. The most popular tools are AI, ChatGPT, Perplexity, recently Distinction AI, which is designed with the NUC-based curriculum, and also other tools. So those are the ones that are the most popular, but there are other tools as well. There are tools that helps with video generation. There are tools that helps with, even creating content like you mentioned, and a lot of even research, right? So once lecturers and educators are able to welcome this, open it with open arms, understand, the way that these tools even work, and they're able to introduce it to their students, it helps for the better use, of this platform, both within and outside the classroom. You've mentioned something really critical, which I really would love that, people that the stakeholders are in charge are able to explore, which is to expand the grading system. You mentioned that the genius in students is beyond just what the box you know, that the education system that we currently have places everyone. Once you're in, I think from SS1, now they've changed the system. When I was in school, it was 6336. I think you did 6 years in primary school, 3 years in junior secondary, 3 years in senior secondary, and then university. But now I think it's 993 something. So there's now up to basic 9 before you now go to, you know, senior secondary school. But having students to be able to explore instead of just saying, okay, once you're in senior secondary school, you're either in commercial class or you're in science class or you're in art class. I don't know if that's still the norm these days, which I think it is. We are able to explore. So like I had a when I was in secondary school, my senior prefect boy, I think our assistant senior prefect boy, he was in science class. All the, you know, all these choice prefects back then used to come from science class. But it was also really good, you know, with art. He used to love to read and, you know, write and draw and those things. But the way the classroom is set up, you have to, you know, do physics and chemistry and technical drawing, and that was it. There is no saying you're doing, you want to write literature, you know, as a student of a science student, for example. That's something that is considered a hobby. You can do it at home, but not in school. And even commercial, like right now, we all do some sort of money mathematics, you know, budgeting. You need to know these things. But because you were only taught physics, mathematics, all of us are now trying to go for either one course or another to be able to understand, you know, the stock market and budgeting and personal finance and all of these other things. I think that's also a very, very good submission. And you mentioned being able to also grade students based on strengths. So like if you're in tertiary institution, for example, the system is designed to own, you know, the inherent gifts, things that come easily to you, as opposed to just, you know, grading based on the concrete skills, you know, that are being taught in our universities. And then last but not least, I am not saying it in any particular order. You also mentioned the fact that we also need to start looking into social skills and helping students to be able to think critically, ask questions. So that way, the more questions you ask, the better the kind of answers you're able to find. There's this saying that you can tell the intelligence of a person not by what they say, but by the kind of questions that they ask. If you're able to encourage students, you know, to ask better questions, then just maybe we'll be able to increase their level of critical thinking, and then we can now have less concern with respect to, you know, the human agency, even with the use of automations and different form of artificial intelligence and all of those things as they come. As the saying goes, this is the least AI is ever going to be. No matter how fantastic you think AI is at the moment, it is going to get better. It's going to be even much more elaborate and much more rich, you know, in the nearest future. So we need to now make sure that we take the bull by the horn, especially in this part of the world. So we're not, what's the word? We're not playing catch up, you know, to the rest of the world. Let us encourage our students to use these tools. Let's also encourage our educators, you know, to learn these tools and use them. I think I've been able to succinctly put everything that you said so far, Aisha.
Yes, you have. You have.
Thank you so much. On the call, I have my colleagues Lacey and Zubeda. Like I said earlier, I don't know if they want to, you know, either say one thing or another, or if not, we can have final thoughts. We're supposed to have a couple of students join us. One of them was having issues, you know, with joining. He had till now, we're still chatting. If you see me, you know, just looking down, I've been trying to resolve it with him, but unfortunately, he was not able to join us. So we've been having this. Oh, he's on the just wow! He literally just joined the call right now. Hi, Simon. I was just informing our guest lecturer for today, Aisha, about the issues you've been having with respect to joining. Simon, are you able to talk? Hi, Simon, are you there?
Yeah, good morning.
Hi, Simon, good morning. I was just informing Aisha the level of hassles we've been having in respect to trying to get you to join the call.
Honestly, I've been trying since 10 o'clock. I just got myself in order.
Thank you so
So
much.
You're welcome. How's the progress of the meeting?
It's not really more, it's more of a conversation. Aisha has given us a lot of insights. So I'll just quickly take the summary again, and then I'll take a couple of questions and insights from you as a student who also uses AI, within the context of the classroom. So today is International Day of Education. So happy International Day of Education to you as an active student. What
Thank
did you
you,
say?
thank you, thank
You're welcome. You're welcome. So Aisha has, we're having a conversation around the theme, which is the risk of, human agency. How are we, I hope we're not going to lose that, to automation, not losing the expansion of AI and not losing that to, not losing human agency to that. And Aisha has spoken a lot around how we can preserve this. Hi, Simon. It's nice to put a face to your name. You have a
yeah,
very
thank
lovely
you.
smile. Good morning. Yes. So Aisha has mentioned that there's a current high level of reliance on AI. But before I go further, Simon, do you use AI as a student? And what are some of the things that you've received? What has been the reception like, from your lecturers?
Oh yeah, actually, I use AI, and I think at some point AI is very very good. But if we want to talk about AI, we have to have it as a balanced discussion where we'll talk about the good effects of it, but as well the downside of it. Because I think over reliance on AI will diminish a lot of individual intelligence. As a matter of fact, I use it, but not as something I will over rely on because at some point it's going to limit my ability. So I knew at some point I have to use, but I don't have to make it my tool for education because the reason why we're in the educational sector or perhaps the students is because we have to study, we have to expand our intelligence. So if there is a machine or an artificial something that will come where it has to take the space of with the students or I will not be having that expansion of intelligence, thinking, and innovations. It's going to be a problem. So I use, but not as something that will replace my own ability to think and science myself.
Oh,
Can you hear
great,
me?
fantastic. Yes, I heard you. That's a very nice submission. Aisha was nodding, the entire time because she already spoke extensively on how for us not
Oh,
to over
on,
rely, on AI, which is a very fantastic one. Does your current the way your school is set up, we did do an official introduction. So I'll let you officially introduce yourself, to people that are going to end up uploading and sharing these videos with, and ask just
or
how much do you currently, your current lecturers, do they encourage the use of AI in the classroom, or how exactly have you been exposed to AI? Have you had to learn it yourself, or there are some times when you have one or two lecturers, mention the use of AI to you guys in the classroom? But first, start with an introduction.
okay. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So my name is Simon. A diploma graduate and an efficacious nursing aspirant of full life here. So, well, I think that is a simple introduction. I don't know if I should get your question right. You're asking if our lecturers have introduced AI or something similar, right?
Especially in the classroom, is
Oh,
there an official introduction to say, okay, these are some of the tools that you can use within your field? Is there any mention of it, or
what?
you've had to learn it yourself outside of the classroom?
I don't think I have to learn it myself. Well, let me. This is actually funny, but I have to say this. When I came to discover about this was from my course mate. He actually came to study with me, and there was this question we're finding very, very difficult. So, somehow he said, okay, he has an AI in his phone. Let him just try it out. So he sent the question to them, and luckily they brought in an answer that somehow we have to take it because the question that we really find it difficult to solve. And that was when I got to know about AI. So I now collected the AI from it because this AI is like there are two types. These artificial intelligence are normally on WhatsApp. I think there are like two types. You have the one that comes with WhatsApp. Is it WhatsApp, normal WhatsApp or WhatsApp business? I don't know. There's another one that you can download or something. So I collected the one you can download from me, and then some point I started using. I don't mean to, downgrade AI, but there was this calculus question, which we're doing calculus. So I sent an AI question. We were to use a first principle and solve. The answer they gave me was not actually what we were supposed to get. That was not the answer. So at some point, I have to like no AI, but I asked you to do it using first principle. This is the way I want you to do it. So they were like, oh, they made a mistake, so this is how they would. And I was like, come on, I thought this thing is supposed to be without me mistake. And they are telling so that point I knew that no, I don't have to rely on this because this might make me if I have to rely on my studies and all of that, it's definitely going to make me fail my exams and
Yes.
maybe at some point I might be thinking I'm brilliant with artificial intelligence, but it's and I have an example of it. There's an AI called a bookworm. So this bookworm is actually designed to personalize reading accommodation, and recommendations for students, right? And preferences and grade level to suggest books that they might enjoy. I don't know if you're hearing me.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
loud and clear.
Yeah, so let's assume that if um, the training data primarily consists of books by Western authors. You will discover that the AI might overlook the fantastic work that is done by the Asian authors. Now, what am I saying? For example, let's say maybe a student um
Oh
let's say
dear.
maybe a student is trying to study about can you hear me?
Yes, loud
Yes.
and clear. Please go ahead.
Okay, okay. So let's assume a student interested in history fiction. It suggests this book who I'm telling you now suggested a book called maybe the book thief. So this book thief is actually from the German setting. Yeah. So maybe or another one. There's another one called all the light cannot see. Something like all the light we cannot see. Something like that. I actually forgotten. That one is from the French setting. So this a student that is interested in history fiction, and just because he's in love with the AI, just got there to get some suggestions or recommendations, and AI now suggesting this one. These are actually Western authors' books. So these are yeah, they are books that are by Western authors. They might ignore books like let's say maybe Panchiko, which is a Korean state thing. Now, this is actually a bias because at some point you discover that the exposure of this literature tradition is from the Western authors. So it will diminish, or let me say, diminish the level of exposure from students by trying to get authors from either Western and the Asian world. So if an AI could be diverse, it will be good. But again, it depends on the student. Just like I earlier told you that I was giving them a question on calculus, which we were to use first principle to solve. So the answer they gave me was not actually according to the first
Great.
principle, and I specify that is according to the first principle. But the answer they gave me was just this general solution.
Mm.
And I have other instances. This is practically something that everybody can actually do because it's not only me. Lots of people use AI. Most times you send them questions and they give you a different answer. But if you know what you are doing, you can counter them. Maybe you say, but this is not what I asked for. This is not what I requested. And you see that they will actually sorry and they will be sorry and tell you, okay, maybe they make a mistake from here. So they will give you a different one. That alone should tell you that you don't have to over rely on AI because it's going to limit your ability to think and it's going to somehow make you feel like you are not intelligent or something. So I think before AI there were a lot of brilliant students, scholars, educationalists. So even though AI is a program, but this does not mean we have to forget about the good side of it because it also promises learning and it enhances education experiences. So we don't have to downgrade it that much. But again, over reliance is going to be a problem.
Okay.
And too much of it definitely diminish the student's ability to think. And as a matter of fact, it could also diminish vital human teachers in fostering critical thinking, social and emotional development. Even tutors, it's doing at some point this might even replace tutors because questions that you can easily discuss with your tutor have some, reasonable arguments and all of that. I can easily be doing it with your AI, and I don't think it's going to do justice to tutors because I also teach. I can say a student tutor. So I think at some point the argument that I expect students to have with me, they might be having it with AI. So it might replace us, I think.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for that, Simon. You said a lot of things, and the entire time Aisha was smiling. So I'll let Aisha,
Yeah.
answer some of the things that you've raised. But you mentioned something very, very critical, very, very important. And Zubaida already also agreed in the chat with respect to prompt. Like you mentioned, the best way to use AI is from a place of knowledge. You need to have an idea of what it is that you want to do, and then AI is supposed to be a support, not exactly a replacement of what you want to do, which would most likely also address your concern about the replacement of tutors or even educators. Aisha, would you like to picture into some of the things that Simon has said?
Yes. I am happy that, we've discussed a lot of distance
Yes, we
issues I
have.
brought
Yes,
up
we
earlier.
have.
I'm happy that students already seeing where this can be an issue. And I'm very happy that he has also highlighted the racial biases with AI, because that is at the center of, that is most important, especially when you are a student of research. You cannot get, as the information you get from AI is very limited because of these racial biases. So I'm happy that he has noted that, and in using AI, he has that at the back of his mind, that it is possible this information is not always 100%.
Accurate.
Now, it is part of critical thinking to be able to sieve information too. Yeah, so I'm happy he's thinking in that direction. Now, as of replacing tutors, where you're viewing it from what is tenable now, it is possible that AI would replace tutors. But we know the world evolves. So tutoring too is going to evolve. And I do not believe AI is going to replace tutorship. Now, we talked about tutoring changing to maybe mentorship, more of mentoring, more of coaching. I do not think AI is able to replace. Yes, AI is not able to do that. Now, the higher risk of, the higher risk of AI is usually, the cognitive, replacing our cognitive thinking, depleting our social skills and survival skills. That is where the risk lie the most. But I do not think AI is able to replace tutorship. If we evolve, it is not going to replace us. But if we stay where we are now, it is definitely going to replace us. But we have to evolve. And I think evolution is a basic human instinct. That's why for years now, if you look at documentaries from 50, 60 years back, people were projecting that by now computers would replace humans. Well, computers have not replaced us, and so I believe we are going to evolve. But for those of us that refuse to learn, that's why I encourage, teachers.
Educators.
Yes, to learn. Educators need to learn these AI tools, because if you don't, it will definitely replace you. Because a lot of students now, what is the point of paying, let's say, to go to school where you can learn distance of the internet? Now, so if we do not change the way we tutor, AI is going to replace this kind of the kind of tutorship we have now. But if we evolve, I believe it is not going to replace us.
Thank you so much for that, Aisha. That's already, answers the question of the human agency part. The saying is that AI is not here to replace anyone, but it would most likely replace those that refuse to go with the time. There's this movie that I saw on Netflix. I'm trying to remember the title, if you can help me. The one that had Haraji, PNC, that they had human computers. That's the movie about the America's quest to go to space. and
Space, yeah,
official, eventually the moon. You know, the movie was
yes,
designed to celebrate the women, you know, that were
yes,
computing the numbers and stuff. So there was a time when in their departments, the computers were actually women. You know, there
yes,
was writing the calculation, and then they got the I don't know what it's called. I think it was the IBM, that very big
yes,
computer, and
supercomputer,
their lead, the lead of the
yes,
computer, the women that were computers learned the language Fortran, you know, and she taught
yes,
the other women to learn Fortran. So by the time came, you know, for them to say, okay, we don't need human computers anymore because we now had this tool that is able
yes,
to do these things faster. Well, it ultimately needs someone to operate it. So if
yes,
they had not learned that language at the time, they would have been replaced. They would all have been out of the job. But because they went the
okay,
extra step, you know, they took the like you mentioned, evolving, evolution as a human being. You cannot, the only constant thing in life is growth. And
yes,
for you to grow, it means you're evolving, you're
Exactly.
yes,
you're moving with the tide. It means, okay, this is AI, this is what it can do. How can
yes,
I harness, you know, this tool and get the best out of it, either as an educator or as a student or even as a professional? So there are no threats, so to speak, to those
yes,
that are insistent on applying their critical thinking, their agency, as it were, to use AI as opposed to just sit back and say, you know,
yes,
I'm not pro AI, and most likely would get replaced. Thank you so much
yes.
for that, Aisha. I don't know if you have any questions for Simon, or I should just quickly do a rundown again of what we've discussed. And if Simon has any other thing to add, he would add it to it. We've been having this conversation now for over 1 hour, and we would most
Yes.
likely need to wrap it up because I know you would have, you know, other things to do, both Simon and Aisha. Even though we're very grateful that you obliged our invitation. Do you have any questions for Simon?
No, you can go ahead with the rundown.
Summary, fantastic.
Yes.
All right. So you like Simon, unfortunately you are not able to, you know, join us from the beginning of the conversation. So we've spoken about a couple of things, and I'd like to just quickly run through them again. And if you have any questions or any submissions with respect to some of these things, you can just, you know, quickly impute, submit, and we'll, you know, move from there. So some of the things that Aisha has mentioned and discussed, you know, before now, we've already mentioned some of them, which is over reliance on AI. You already spoken with respect to that. Also, critical thinking, which you've also mentioned, because the ultimately, right, like Zubeda also said, prompts, for you to be able to have the right prompts with AI tools, it means you must be thinking, and we're thinking, you know, critically. She's also mentioned the fact that we need to get to a point where AI is actually even infused into the classroom, where educators and even students like yourselves are able to experience AI even within the classroom. So in the class, you are learning something on your languages, or even in quantity surveying, like in Aisha's field, your lecturer is the one that's actually introducing you to how you can use AI to get the best, you know, from either the lesson that is being taught or even other things. You're able to better understand and better use some of these AI tools because your lecturer is encouraging the use of it and also helping you to know how best, you know, to use it. And doesn't replace the fact of even reading your own books, because like you mentioned, Simon, when you asked about the calculus on first principle, if you did not have an idea of what the answer should be, you would have just assumed that because AI said this is
Yeah.
it, this most likely would be it. But because you had not over relied on it, you know, you're able to get the most value. And then she mentioned something which would address your concern about tutorship, which is tutoring rather, which is mentorship. That says, instead of the current structure that we have with learning, where teachers and educators, especially within the context of tertiary institutions, universities, polytechnics, monotechnics, where the teachers and educators come to talk with you, talk to you as opposed to talk with you. So where educators are able to move beyond just teaching to mentorship, being able to teach life skills, because where we're going, there are some things that AI cannot do. AI cannot emote. No matter how much they try to do it, it cannot emote. There are some life skills that AI can most likely not teach you, right? And lecturers and our tutors and our educators will need to also imbibe that in order to preserve, you know, some of our agencies, even within the world of automation that we're moving into. And then she also mentioned that lecturers would also need to educate us, because I know that we're going to have people that are also within the K-12, you know, watching this video. Educators also need to themselves learn AI. Simon already mentioned that the first time we heard about AI was from a colleague. And that's because as students, you have the onus to learn, but also educators, right? Educators need to also take the pain, take the time beyond what they're already used to learn some of these AI tools that are relevant to their field, relevant to the courses, because the way the world is moving, we don't want a scenario where those of us in Africa are playing catch up to the guys in Europe and the Americas, because they are currently using it and they're using it really well. So we need our lecturers and our educators to, get in the game, learn these tools for themselves and be able to better teach students to be able to get value even from these platforms. And then she mentioned something very, very interesting, which I think Simon would also find interesting, which is about the grading system. She has mentioned that the grading system at the moment is very boxing. We will need to look at reviewing and expanding, the grading system within our current education framework and structure, especially in Nigeria, to be able to accommodate human agents, to be able to accommodate thinking. We spoke about the fact that our grades and our exams in Nigerian schools at the moment are very restricted to what you're being taught in the classroom. But we need to be able to encourage students to think and also answer in the way that they understood or the way that they understand, and be able to mark, in between the lines, as opposed to, expecting a certain type of answer and marking right or wrong in that regard. That we were able to encourage human agency, we're able to encourage students to think and embrace their genius. And last but not least, which is also a spillover from this last thing that I mentioned, is being able to encourage student strength. So if your strength as a student is, you're just a very sociable person, which is going to become the currency of the future, because very soon a lot of the things that we do, especially the mechanical ones, can be automated, right? But you cannot automate being able to, compassion. You cannot automate communication. You cannot automate uh, just the basic emotions, right? You should be able to encourage and also celebrate these skills even amongst students. Aisha, I don't know if I've done justice to everything we've discussed so far, or if I left anything out.
You have.
Thank you. Would you like to pitch in, or I've done a very good job?
No, you've done an amazing job.
Fantastic. Simon, is there anything that you're thinking in respect to this that we've not touched, so that you can, touch on it, or if you have any questions before we wrap up today's webinar?
Okay. It's actually hurts me that I came late, but I'll look forward for
You really
this
tried to jump
opportunity
in.
again.
It was not on you.
Yeah, I will prepare more. So, I think towards the end, there is something you say that impressed me a lot. You say, even the lecturers should find a way to, make their grading very easy. For me, a lecturer is my friend when he says, yeah, anyhow you put it, as long as it's correct, I'm going to mark it. I think at some point that encourages wide thinking and a variety of, research from students. Because for me, the way I do my studies, I don't actually depend on what lecturers give. As a matter of fact, some of their definitions or explanations are too big that you find it difficult to comprehend. So for me, I find definitions that align with my studies. I find definitions or explanations that make me to understand, because why we're in education is not because we just want to completely or let me say cram up what our lecturers taught so that we'll go and write in the exams. It's for us to understand what a particular thing is talking about. I think um in my 100 level, we were having a tutorial. So I was actually the one handling that tutorial. And I said, I think I still remember very well. We're discussing about fog, and I said in physics. And then I explained to some of my colleagues that torque is actually or simply a force that moves about an axis. And I told them that if you don't put your key in the padlock and you're trying to open the door, the force you are using is actually what we call torque. So by the time you are moving your key to try open that door, the force is moving about an axis. Very simple. So by the time you try to comprehend this to your personal understanding, even if you are there, that is just a big statement, but you will still remember it. And when a lecturer is now expecting me to write the definition of torque that is maybe very long, that, you know, if I'm trying to understand it, the highest I can do is to cram it. It's going to be difficult, you know, and it will limit my research because I will only be focused at understanding what he writes in class, you know, or what he explains. So I think for lecturers to give it a device idea that why they teach, students can go on and do more research. And regardless of what they give, as long as it aligns what that particular thing is, then they should be able to grade us. At some point, sometimes if I get a lower mark, I'm wondering if the lecturer's grading is based on what you only teach in the class. And if that is the case, I think we're in trouble. So it's a very, very good point. It's a very, very good point. And I think the last one is, of course, even when I say, yeah, the AI, the AI might replace the tutors, I didn't actually mean they are going to completely erase the tutors. But of course, the point I focus at is, you know, the discussion, the arguments, and all, because right now, trust me, if a student have problem, before we know that if a student have problems, sometimes they go and meet a lecturer and say, sir, I was reading this particular thing and I find it difficult. Or you know, I'm doing a stage and this is what I comes up with. But right now the problem is that if a student have that problem, they quickly take their phone and send the question to AI. And no matter how difficult the question is, AI will rather give you a question that I don't want to say it's wrong, but maybe their view or the way they look at the question is correct than telling you, come on, this question is above me, or I don't know it. They must provide an answer. Whatever you type to AI, they are going to send you an answer. So when a student is not capable, you know, to do more research or is not willing to discuss these things with their lecturers, I think that's a problem. And hence you could see some AI representing other parts of the lecturing work or mentorship. And I think that was what I actually meant. So I think as Veda said, evolution is the best, and that is just it. As the AI is taking over their path, tutors, mentors, and lecturers have to also, you know, tighten up so that they will keep up with this, and students will find it interesting to know that, well, as much as we enroll into the AI project, you don't have to, you know, make it take over the whole thing because lecturers, mentors, and tutors still remain the best.
Thank you so much, Simon, for that. Aisha, do you have any final words?
Yes, I think we've touched on most of the important points. And when he talked about, you know, before students approaching their lecturers, they would rather ask, you know, AI the questions. That was why I was emphasizing that we need to change. When, you know, instead of teaching, you are mentoring or coaching, students will feel comfortable to relate with you rather than a machine that just gives you based on what you impute. So that is why I emphasize that educators need to take mentorship and coaching very serious. You know, you need to show the students that yes, these machines are there to answer your questions, but I am here to guide you. I'm going to offer you more. I'm going to guide you. The machines cannot guide you. They just give you answers to the questions you asked. But when your educator is mentoring, you know that when you ask them, they would even, you know, encourage you to ask more questions that in the beginning you did not even think were questions you should be asking. You know? Yes. So when we are, you know, guiding, when we are mentoring, students will still feel more comfortable than just asking machines that give you straight up answers to just questions you ask. A mentor will guide you to even ask questions that are actually relevant, you know, because knowing what questions to ask is something to learn on its own. Sometimes you can be asking questions and they are not even the right questions, or they are not the right way to ask those questions. So when we change the way we approach this thing, students will be more comfortable with us, and we would be able to guide them to actually ask the right questions. So that is basically it. I am happy that these conversations are coming up earlier than, you know, like you said, playing catch up. I am happy that these conversations are happening at this time. And I would also wish that more people would be invited, especially those stakeholders that are responsible for structuring the way our education is. They would be invited into these conversations because we can't run away distance. Technology is changing faster. Before you get any changes, even upgrade to your phones, it takes years. But now within months, there are always upgrades. So the society is fast-paced now, and I hope we get more people to join in these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Thank you. I was looking for the clap feature so I can. Oh yeah, I found it. Where is it? Where is it? Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much, Aisha. You've spoken really well. So on the final note for me, I would just say that I really love the fact that we're able to have this conversation with stakeholders from two ends, an educator and also a student. And we're already beginning to emphasize the fact that outside of what is currently the norm within our institutions, would most likely need to embrace a future where educators, lecturers see themselves beyond just trying to pass on knowledge, but also as guides and mentors, because that is some of the things that you cannot find on any automated tool. And those are some of the things that also foster this our main conversation around human agency. Like you mentioned, Aisha, in your final note, you mentioned that even knowing the right questions to ask is something that you also need to learn. And that is something that AI would not teach you. AI would not tell you, a ChatGPT, for example, will not tell you the right question to ask it. You need to already know that before you come and approach, such tools. And this, what other best place to learn that than from where you're already learning. So our educators need to also take on, the responsibility to be able to learn these things and also be able to impact knowledge and produce, like we always say, an all-round graduates that are all-rounders, graduates that can have a level playing field with their colleagues and their counterparts from across the world and not just within the sphere of Nigeria. We've been having this conversation now for over an hour, 30 minutes, and I want to say a very, very big thank you to Aisha. Thank you so much, for the time and for the amazing, knowledge that you've impacted. Thank you so much, Simon, for trying and trying and trying for over 40 minutes to be able to join this conversation today. Simon, we're very grateful. And for Zubeida as well, that's been on the call quite quietly, apart from the comments, that she dropped earlier. Thank you as well. And on this note, we will say thank you again to everyone that's been a part of this call, and happy International Day of Education. And this will be bye for now. Until next time, I'm hoping that we'll be able to have other conversations, Aisha, and you'll be happy to oblige us.
Yes, I would. It was
Thank
my
you
pleasure.
So much.
And thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and bye for now.
Thank you. Yes.